Get ready and tune into the Doctor's Guide podcast, Raw and Unfiltered, a unique platform to help you optimize your health through dynamic role playing, real life challenges with expert guests and your host, Dr. Bart Rademaker. I'm Dr. Bart Rademaker, and this is the Doctor's Guide podcast, Raw and Unfiltered. And if you've been with me before, you might have been blessed with my sweet little cat in the background. You see the white tail. He's a Maine Coon cat. He's 7 months old, and he's already over 10 pounds. His dad was 30 pounds, and no, his mom was 30 pounds, and his dad is 40 pounds. So don't know where he's going to be at, but he may join us in the show. So for today, what's really important for me to share with you, right, to get down to the importance of why this podcast. You see, with so much information out there on health, it's very difficult to navigate any of that, including people that know so much like I do. I get confused, especially with all this high tech and advanced tech that's out there. Then all these people making all these promises, of which maybe they're right for you or maybe they're not. Maybe they're right for the next person, but not you. So rather than diving into all these different products and services that people are selling you, which we don't sell anything here, our job here is to share with you the process by which you can make the best decisions for yourself, because you deserve optimum health. You also deserve to be able to afford it, because some of those things out there are super expensive and may not do anything for you. So how do we do that? Well, it's a process, and that's what we share here today. How do we make those decisions? And we do that through role playing. And with my amazing guests, one will have a problem and one will guide them towards some form of resolution. Now, we're only going to do that for about 6 minutes. The entire show is about 25, 30 minutes. But for 6 minutes, Gary's going to guide Charity to resolve her problem. And you'll be surprised how often amazing resolutions and even breakthroughs happen on this podcast just within 6 minutes. But the purpose is that you get to witness yourself, see yourself in the problem that Charity is going to present. This might actually trigger you. You might be judgmental of it. But there's the magic as well, because if you have a negative response right there, right then, or even what Gary has to say, that's actually a signal to your brain, to your conscious mind that says, I have work to do. I have some work to do on any of this. And that's the truth that Byron Katie has shared with us. And so listen and tune in, see where you can create some new choices for yourself to help you optimize your life through this role playing. And after the 6 minutes, what we'll do is we'll unpack it. We'll discuss it for about 10 or 15 minutes, kind of give context and content to some of those things that they shared. And then we'll just wrap it up after that. So I want to invite both Charity and Gary just to introduce themselves, and then we'll go into the role play. So Charity, thank you so much for joining me today. A brief intro about yourself, and then we'll go with Gary, and then we'll go with the whole role play. Charity.
I'm Charity Dale, and I have been working on health and healing for the last 15 years. For the last year, I've been studying massage therapy, and I am in the process of opening Juniper Healing Arts here in Carson City, Nevada, where I would like to specialize in so many different elements of healing to encourage better, healthy lifestyles for everyone in need.
And so for anybody out there in the Carson area, or even if you're in Reno or coming down from Utah on your way to Burning Man, like I will be doing next year, or this year, I should say, definitely will stop in, because she has some amazing magic and incredible, I'm not sure what the word is, talent, skill, or ability to energetically help people heal. So definitely check her out. Gary.
I'm Gary Ailes from Carson City, Nevada. And I'm working in the area of environment and working to save landfills, but more importantly, to change our dirt back to soil so that we get the nutrition that we need out of our food instead of having to take supplements to make up the difference.
So one of the problems that is very relevant in our world today is that because of the overuse of the soil, it's losing all of its nutrients. And the prediction is within about 45 years, the soil will be without any nutrients, and we can't grow anything. And so therefore, the work that Gary is doing is so important to replenish the nutrition in our foods, because not only is the fact that too many people are eating processed food. Too many people are eating food that has little or no nutrition within it. So great work on that. So we'll talk a little bit more about that after this. So start your role play. Charity, it's on you.
Gary, I went grocery shopping the other day and I bought what I thought was a complete nutritious menu to feed my family for the week. And it doesn't matter what I do, every single time I cook a beautiful meal, it can be steak and potatoes and broccoli, I'm still always feeling weak. I get rashes all over my legs, and I'm not quite understanding why I'm still anemic after making such a complete, perfectly well-balanced meal for my family.
I think
Can you
there's a
please help?
challenge there. Yeah, I think there's a challenge there, particularly if you're having that kind of problem. Are you buying organic foods?
No.
You might consider that. And if I can give you a little background, most farming has been done with inorganic fertilizer, salts, if you will, ever since World War II. And in doing that, what we've done is depleted our soils. We've put nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium back into the soil, but that leaves all the other things out. And when you're having that kind of problem, it's because we're not getting the nutrition out of the food that we should be getting. And you may be getting secondary allergies, but the reality is that nutrition isn't there. And we'll try to help explain more if you'd like.
Thank you.
Sure. So would you like me to go farther in why that's occurring in the soil, which really isn't soil anymore, it's dirt?
Yes, I would love to hear more so I can educate myself and other people.
So if you look at the soil as an ecosystem, there's bacteria, there's protozoa, there's nematodes, and then we go up into the little arthropods, the small insects, on up into beetles and earthworms. So to compare that, there's a lot of work being done on the human microbiome and how it relates to our health because of the kind of bacteria that we have helping us digest. And there's actually communication being found between that and the body and the brain. So when the soil has the right ecosystem, they have good aerobic bacteria and they have good protozoa, which are single-celled little creatures. Amoeba might be the thing that people would know most. And we have nematodes, and that's a fancy word for little tiny worms that are about a 1/4 inch long. The bacteria are food for the protozoa and the nematodes. The bacteria can actually move into the plant roots and give that energy of the cell up and move back out and collect more energy, or be devoured by the protozoa or the nematode. And basically, the food that's grown in that kind of soil provides far more nutrition. And really what's happening is it's grown in nematode poop and protozoa poop. And that's where that balance in nutrition comes from that we don't get from the typical farming that's homogeneous, that only has a monoculture where it's all strawberries, it's all cabbage, it's all carrots, or it's all wheat, it's all corn, it's all milo, it's all soybeans. What you're looking at is we can't feed the world if we don't do that, but we've got to work with the soil so we can make both things work. And that way you won't be in the situation you're describing where you just don't feel right and you make things work on and on. Is that starting to help what your question is?
Yes, and it probably explains why so many of us are so bloated after eating a big full meal instead of feeling satiated and full of energy. That makes a lot of sense with the gut health aspect of it from that standpoint.
Absolutely. And that's why making your own cabbage
Mm-hmm.
or the kimchi, where you're getting the kind of probiotics into your system that you want. And when you make that from things that have been grown on soil, not on dirt, you'll find that it's much richer and much healthier and allows people to get the nutrition in their body they need. And of course, you have to stop and think about our diets today. If we change the way we think about what we're eating, and we said we would like to have meat be an accompaniment to our vegetables,
Mm-hmm.
we would end up being a whole lot healthier. I certainly don't agree personally, because I tried being a vegetarian and it made me sick. And I've got a daughter-in-law who is vegan, and it saved her and her kidneys. So I know that there's a balance for everybody, and each person is different. But as a general rule, if you ate a large amount of vegetables, your taters, and just a small amount of meat, we would be much healthier. It doesn't mean we give meat up. We still have it there, because I do think that that's a great part of our diet. And it's also, I have a lot of faith in our ranchers doing what they do best.
Love
So,
it. Well,
yeah.
that's a wrap. Thank you both. And so one question I'd like to ask first, Charity, what was that for you? What's the context of this, and why was this question important?
It was very important for me because I suffer from a lot of autoimmune stuff, and it's 100% triggered by food. So I have said forever that I wake up mornings feeling so incredibly hungover for no reason. And it was because I went out to the local Mexican restaurant and had a plate of carne asada with tortillas and rice and beans and salsa. And I wake up and I can barely lift my arm up to get out of bed. And so I am such a firm believer with we are what we put in our mouths. And so that really does make a lot of sense. And it does sum it up wholeheartedly what is going on in especially the United States today versus definitely other countries. Because I
Yep.
know I order my flour from France because of the gluten factors versus what we can get in the United States. So
Yep.
thank
Gary,
you for
what was
that.
that? Yeah, thank you. What was that for you?
It felt good to try to explain some of this stuff, and little by little, I think I'm getting better at it. And I don't think you have to go to France for good gluten-free flour. If you find who's developed and is selling Milo flour as
Okay.
opposed to wheat flour, because there's
Hmm.
no gluten in Milo.
I didn't know
Uh,
that. Thank you.
and I'll get you a source, because I'm
Yeah,
aware.
please.
But that's just another option. And one of the problems that may be part of our cause is with wheat, and particularly the gluten problem, is the alleles that have been created as the wheat got shorter and shorter. When I
Hmm.
was a kid on the farm, a good field of wheat, and I used to stand right about 6 foot, and it would come up and hit you mid-chest. And now the wheat is about typically a little over knee high. Doesn't take as much water. You get a much better crop, much more good protein, and it's more drought resistant. But I do think that in the work that's been done, we got some alleles that are almost addictive, forced to
Yeah,
want to eat more, eat more, eat more,
Right.
uh, and
On
it
turns to
purpose.
creates,
sugar.
yeah, a potential problem.
And that's
Hmm.
done on purpose, right?
Yeah,
Um,
so all sorts of things.
yeah, so thank you for that. And so what I oftentimes like to remind people is this, is that you still couldn't believe this as a Christian. We evolved over millions of years in harmony with nature. And without all this, advanced tech and all these other agricultural, marvels that have revolutionized, the way that we survive these days on food that started maybe 10, maybe 15,000 years ago, with not only the domestication of animals, but also with the invention of agriculture and growing crops. And since then, and some people will claim that this was the worst mistake or worst invention of man, because it certainly has affected, our health today. And clearly, Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, stayed away back then, and something that for some reason us docs have really forgotten today, because it's the least taught subject in our curriculum, and that's nutrition. So food is thy medicine and medicine is thy food. And so nothing is more true. But the other part, which is fascinating to me, is the fact that we have a microbiome. Of our 70,000, the 70 trillion cells that we have in our body, we have an astronomical number of microorganisms to the tune of 700 trillion, 10 times more of our own cells, which by themselves dictate a lot of the systems within our body, which is the immune system is one of them, our nervous system, and our hormonal system and everything else. So it's an organ in of itself, if you will, accounting for 99.9 or maybe just 99% of all the DNA that we have. So clearly, if your food isn't up to par, it's going to affect the microbiome. Or if the microbiome is not up to par and the food that you give, strengthens that bad microbiome, it's going to affect you. And one of the first ways it affects you is your immune system and also your skin. So clearly, these are really important things for us to begin to consider. And, as a listener, just educating yourself on these topics, having a better insight, because oftentimes our doctor colleagues don't have the time, the bandwidth to learn all of this. But since the information is out there, you can. So I want to give the mic back to both of you, expand on what your experiences are. What else would you like to share with the listeners so that they can start making better decisions for themselves? Anyone?
If you want me to go first, I've got it. And my suggestion is grow your own garden, number one, and use a biologic fertilizer, not the NPK kind of fertilizers. And you're going to be a whole lot healthier.
What about hydroponics? What about these towers? Are those any good?
I think they're good. I think you've got to find that you're getting all the nutrition that you want in whatever mix you're using to work into the water. And that's the only thing that concerns me with some of the fertilizers that are being put out, and I don't know them well. I'm familiar with a hydroponic tomato plant down in Mexico that's huge, and they buy their fertilizer out of Holland, I think it is, because it's set up for tomatoes specifically. And I don't know what's in it. I don't think they would tell us. However, I'm concerned that you don't get the rare earth minerals. You don't get the micronutrients that you want. What you're getting is what makes the plant look good and makes the tomato look good, but not necessarily give you the nutrition you're wanting. It's just my concern.
So what you're telling us is that basically grow in your own soil if you have property, or find a way to have some property to grow something as naturally as possible. That would make sense.
Yeah, even grow it in a large pot. And there's more and more people that are finding ways to do that, even if you live in an apartment.
Anything else you want to add, Charity?
Yeah, what about your own compost to make your own soil?
Absolutely.
I've always had the question though, if I'm using GMO compost, like if I'm getting compost pieces from the restaurant, is the soil, the acid, going to break down all of the crap that's in all of the garbage foods we eat? Is that going to change it? It's going to change the pH. Is it going to remove it all, like filter it out?
It's the bacteria that will make the difference.
Okay.
And it's going to be up to the bacteria that happen to be there that are working on it. That's why the system that we use to change organic waste into a liquid slurry biofertilizer, biosoil amendment, pretty much wipes out anything like that, because we actually destroy. We found when we ran a test with raspberry cane, and there was another one, it was blackberry cane, and they evidently had quite a number of pesticides on the cane itself. And when they tested it after everything was run, there was no sign of it. So
That's good to know.
it's telling me that the bacteria that we utilize, what we're doing, is breaking those things down. And we know that we've broken glyphosate down before, which is Roundup. So we're working along those lines to prove everything. So the EPA and the USDA will say, hey, that's a good thing.
Yeah, why don't you expand
Thank
a little
you.
bit so that the listener knows what exactly you're doing?
We have a bacterial formula that took you about 10 years to develop. And the gentleman that developed it is Mohammed Mehman. And we've spent another over 10 years coming up with a system that allows us to take any of the organic waste that can come from the table, the yard, or the field, and that includes meat, bones, a little bit of oil from anything that's been cooked, including even rotten fish that have been laying around for several days and you don't want to be near them. And we can convert that through our system to a liquid slurry soil amendment in about an hour.
Wow.
And that soil amendment, we've proven, really works well anecdotally, in that we planted a tomato in a sack of play sand and used our material on it, and we grew tomatoes. So we know that we're getting where we need to be, and I've got a number of anecdotal things that we've done. So what we're trying to do now is a scientific approach to prove what we can or cannot do with pesticides, and prove what we have is truly a soil amendment that will decrease the need for the NPK fertilizers. So we don't have to use all those salts.
I love that. And then clearly, what's that movie, The Martian? I forget the actor plays in that. Maybe he could have used some of your material on Mars. So this is quite remarkable. And when you think of all the food wasted, thrown out to the landfill, done nothing with it, and how we can revitalize our planet in so many different ways, energetically, but also nutritionally. And that would be a game changer. And so I see this opportunity that you have as a paradigm shift in how we process food and how we can revitalize our planet. And while so many people are complaining about climate change and all this kind of nonsense and all these protests, nobody's coming up with actual solutions that can make a change. And this certainly would make a huge change. And I'm certain it would also change the climate. Anything else you want to add, Charity?
No, thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
So with that, Charity, how do people find you? And then any last comment that you want?
You can find me at juniper.healingarts@gmail.com. And I'm in Carson City, Nevada. And please get a hold of me if you want to work on some anxiety or body issues from the physical, the metaphysical, and also the emotional side of life.
Thank you for that. And do you work remotely too or not?
I will, yes.
Excellent. Gary, how do people find you, and any final thoughts?
The easiest way is look me up on ecospheresciences.com. That's ECOspheresciences.com. Or you'll run into me on LinkedIn, and I might spend 5 minutes on Facebook. So I am around, and more than happy to chat with people about what we're doing, as we break into the industry. Thank you. Appreciate everything, Bart.
No, thank you for that. And this is the very reason why I have this podcast, to reach out to as many people as I can. Soon we'll be reaching out to, I think it's 350 million homes with a new podcast TV series that we're doing, but specifically helping people understand what is really out there, what's possible, and give it some legitimacy that it deserves. And not everything has legitimacy, and that's why on the Doctor's Guide we curate and we educate, put things in context, and so that you can be in a better place to make the right decision for yourself. And to be even more specific with what was shared today, one thing that's really important, and that is getting the data. And whether it's food, whether it's the nutrition, whether it's your DNA. And one of the things that I like as a paradigm shift in how we approach our health in the future, which is what I'm actively busy with these days, is the DNA profiles. And there's only one company that I choose to work with because there's light years ahead of everyone else, and giving you the data that you need to know how your body's actually processing food. So like Gary was sharing earlier, probably a balanced food with just a minimum amount of protein is probably the best. And that might serve most people, but other people will be served in different ways. And having that knowledge through your DNA profiling is what makes all the difference. And so rather than just experimenting on any of that, like all these fad diets try to tell you to do, only to find out they don't work for you, get your DNA test. And then the other one is another work that I'm working with a group from Norway, and the diagnostics, with this, the first level of diagnosis, we can get 20,000 different data points in about 10 minutes and all non-invasively. And it's all medically based and scientifically based and approved. It gives us insight as how the body actually regulates itself. And so these are important things. But when it comes to regulation, having people like Charity can absolutely help you modulate the energy fields in your body. Don't ask her exactly how that's done. See the results. And as Gary, shared, with an earlier podcast, if you haven't listened to that one, absolutely listen to that one, because how it transformed his life. And I know that I get these kind of body treatments as well. And I get those major shifts. And that is what I want to share here. Conventional medicine has its very appropriate place, especially for emergencies or critical situations, but you do have many other choices. It's a matter of you discerning which ones are right for you, making that decision, and doing the work yourself. I'm Dr. Bart Rademaker, and this is the Doctor's Guide podcast, raw and unfiltered, and we will be back. Thank you for listening to the Doctor's Guide, an innovative approach to help you navigate the complexities of your health journey with Dr. Bart Rademaker and his expert guests. Tune in to more insights and action steps on our next episode every weekday at 6 p.m. Eastern.